AbbVie's acquiring the Botox maker Allergan. The price tag, well, it's a $63 billion deal worth about $188.24 a share, at least at the open, in cash and in AbbVie stock. That's a 45% premium to Allergan's closing price yesterday. Yeah, this is one that did not leak, and so they're able to say not the last month or the last week, but yesterday, a 45% premium, Sarah. That is very significant. Let's go through some of the key parts of this deal itself, because it is probably something of a surprise to AbbVie holders as they woke up this morning, and they are responding to a certain extent by selling some of those shares. Alternatively, those in Allergan who've been watching that stock decline for quite some time, who may have been in even since the failure years ago of the Pfizer deal, when it was so close to getting a deal done, of course. Key part of that being Pfizer's desire to move to a different tax regime. And then Jack Lew said, nope, not going to happen, by really pinpointing the deal with some changes in the laws. The deal, again, 0.866 shares of AbbVie, $120.30 a share in cash for each Allergan share. We told you about the premium. It is expected to be 10% accretive to EPS over the first full year. They'll get to as much as 20%. They're also talking about synergies of at least $2 billion by year 3, and it is expected to close next year. What's going on here, though? Well, AbbVie's got a huge drug, Humira, still the biggest drug in the world, I think, $19 billion a year. 2023 is when it hits its patent expiration. Now, it's a biologic. It wouldn't necessarily go from $19 billion to zero, but it would decline markedly year after year after year. You want to use this time now to potentially use some of the profits that come from that to diversify your revenue base. And they will be able to do that, going from 60% to 40% of revenues as a result of this deal. But they are moving into areas that they have not typically been associated with, at least not fully. When people talk to AbbVie, they talked about high science. They've talked about their focus on really just a few key areas and sort of not trying to do too much. So oncology, inflammation, central nervous systems, that's been their focus. Now, well, things broaden out quite a bit, don't they? And you know, the question that I've heard, Sarah, is, well, they need scale. If you want to compete with the big guns, namely Novartis or J&J, Pfizer and Merck, and be able to be in a position to have their R&D dollars, they'll have about $6 billion, and even compete for some of those smaller company deals that we talk about at those high premiums. You potentially need that scale, and this, they hope, gives it to them. But, you know, somebody I spoke to who's very familiar with this area and has even thought about this deal in the past said this may be what is the best of a bunch of mediocre alternatives for a company like AbbVie.
I think for both of them, it offers a solution to some of their problems that they've faced lately. For Allergan and Brent Saunders, who has come on CNBC in good times and bad, it's a way to profitably halt and exit a 4-year slide in the stock, really, since that Pfizer deal collapsed back in 2016. And for AbbVie, it diversifies the revenue, right, away from the blockbuster drug of Humira facing that patent cliff. I think there are a few things to talk about. Number one, the tax deal. I mean, this is a victory for Trump, right?
They are redomiciling in the U.S. Of course, this is an Irish company. This is the old Actavis that then merged with Allergan when Valeant came after Allergan, if you recall, and then Pfizer wanted to use it to invert. That fell apart. But they will redomicile in the United States because the tax regime is markedly different now. It will have the effect, though, of increasing in some fashion. And, you know, everybody likes to make sure they know that, because who knows, you might get a favorable tweet from the president.
Well, but there's also some serious, I mean, the antitrust authorities have started looking into these mega deals, right, in drugs a little bit.
Very few overlaps.
You reported yesterday.
Very few overlaps on this one. It's not expected necessarily to get... I mean, you never know. We always need to say that. And yes, that's right, with Bristol yesterday and Celgene. It's funny, this is somewhat similar to what Bristol's done with Celgene. Bristol had 2 main drugs it relied on. You know, the extent it's about gaining scale and being able to compete, there's a theme here. If you're highly dependent on 1 or 2 drugs, you need to potentially diversify away from that. And you don't have that many choices. You don't have that many choices. And so if you're AbbVie, you've now made your choice. They're talking about a new growth platform, revenue of more than $30 billion. They're talking about generating significant operating cash flows. It would have been $19 billion in 2018. They will continue to pay their dividend. They will continue to generate a good amount of cash for R&D. We'll see. I'll be very curious to see. I mean, Allergan, you get it, right? And his shareholders, Brett Saunders, up, Appaloosa, which has been trying to get them to separate the chairman and CEO, or senator, which had been in there, any number of them. They're all happy.
They were looking. I mean, there was rumors at least that they were looking at a split or some other sort of structural change to the business. I wonder if this has got to be superior to that.
Yes, that is right. I think that there had been an expectation when Mr. Saunders had talked about having a sense of urgency to create value, that he was talking about a split. And while if you look at the average analyst estimate of what a split would bring, it might be about $190. It would have taken years to get there. Here you get virtually the same compensation, and you get it today. You get it when the deal closes.
Could we see another bidder for Allergan?
Unlikely. Unlikely. This is Irish takeover law, so the breakup fee is 1%. It's very low, so it's not really a bar at all to potentially another bidder. The only name that some have bandied about, because it conceivably would be accretive to its top line right away, would be J&J, which is already big in some of the areas that Allergan is big in, but unlikely.